Story 1. All content creators would transfer to other short-form platforms, such as Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts. They already have profiles on them. Story 2. People who rely on it for income and brand growth would not be happy. TikTok doomscrollers would not be happy. My life, personally, would be completely unchanged as I am more of a YouTube, Reddit, and chatting with friends time waster. Story 3. Realistically, there would be about a 24-hour lull until everyone decided what the next popular platform would be. Then it would be business as usual. If that 24 hours was a busy day for you, the only difference you would notice would be that instead of TikTok, it would be new platform in the headlines. Story 4. I would have fewer texts, which would be nice as I do not have TikTok, so I just ignore them. However, people keep sending them. Story 5. There are many small business owners who often use TikTok as a form of advertisement. If it disappears, people would certainly lose a significant number of potential customers who might discover them, aside from word of mouth. Story 6. Nothing other than people getting upset. Eventually, they would move on and forget about it within 6 to 12 months. Story 7. We would see people going outside for the first time ever, but not to go nature walking. They will be walking like zombies to the data centers trying to get their TikTok fix any way they can, including reusing content from scattered hard drives. Story 8. Remember when Pokemon Go first came out and everyone experienced world peace for a couple of days? Probably that. Story 9. I really hope that all these platforms will be shut down soon because, in fact, they only prevent the younger generation from developing in life. And maybe there will be more good in this world. Story 10. People would complain for a bit and move on. They would reminisce about it like they do with Vine and Musical.ly. Something else would rise up to take its place that would be similar but different. Story 11. Probably very little. People would spend more time looking at other applications. People would remember it kind of like Vine. Mark Zuckerberg would be a tiny bit more powerful, but not by very much. Story 12. People would migrate to other platforms and try applying the same formats that had worked on TikTok, the choreography and the lip sync, though I don't know if that would survive outside TikTok or evolve until it fits. Story 13. I like to think it would be like one of those movies where everyone goes outside for the first time in forever and sees a sunny, beautiful day while rubbing their eyes. But in reality, everyone would just start scrolling through some other content. Story 14. It would be completely the end of the world, exactly as it was before TikTok existed. There was no world. Story 15. My life would go on normally, and people would have one less reason to pull foolish pranks that could get them shot. Story 16. Generation Z individuals will throw a temper tantrum for a week, and then everyone would just move over to another platform, and we would be right back to where we are today. I mean, obviously someone will just make a TikTok clone. They probably already exist. If TikTok disappears, it will be a gold mine for whoever creates the one that replaces it. So I cannot imagine the world will collectively just decide, oh well, it was fun while it lasted. No, they will be like a nicotine addict. They will have a tantrum when they cannot get their fix for one day, probably experience extreme mood swings and not be able to sit still. They will frantically ask everyone around them where they can get more. Light it up, take a drag, and breathe a sigh of relief. And the world goes on. Story 17. About 60 to 70% fewer unregistered suicides, the root cause of which is TikTok, primarily among children. It's significant news, yet seems to lack further details. It would be great for this change to occur. It is much needed. Story 18. I hate to say it, but Meta will take over, and Mark Zuckerberg will have the content that we enjoy from TikTok but with a less favorable algorithm. Story 19. Nothing. The brain rot is done, we can't go back. Something would just replace it, maybe even worse. The Chinese Communist Party would still have all their data. Even if you destroyed the entire internet, the degraded people would just be bored, not better. Not to mention all the systems we have in place that rely on it, which would bring catastrophe to many other technologies as they literally come crashing down. And hey, Reddit. Remember when we were all supposed to boycott Reddit? Like 3 different times? How did that go? Story 20. Pretty much everyone between the ages of 11 and 17 who speaks English would be inconsolable. Teachers, like myself, would rejoice as kids quickly forget how to dance and interrupt with whatever the latest trend is. Parents would realize that they actually had a role to fulfill that couldn't be outsourced to an application. Parents might even learn things about their children that make them want to get to know them better. Society would benefit. Story 21. When TikTok stopped working a few weeks ago, I switched to Reels and saw that my roommate was liking content about disliking her roommate. Story 22. Millions would stare at their blank screens, wondering where to scroll, before reluctantly rediscovering the outside world. Story 23. Very little. People would move elsewhere, and there would be a very glorious period where traveling on public transport would briefly stop being the hellscape it currently is because there would no longer be social media videos blasting out of phones. The world existed before social media and will continue to exist when people's attention eventually moves elsewhere. Story 24. The same thing that happened when Vine disappeared. People would initially freak out for a month or so, then move on. Story 25. It did for me. I deleted it off my phone when the ban happened for about one day, if that, but my husband didn't delete it off his phone. When it was restored, I could no longer find it on the App Store on my iPhone and still can't find it. So if I want TikTok, I have to go on my computer. That's lame. Story 26. I have a best friend who will join me and my husband for a celebratory drink. The three of us may end up in jail for drinking loudly on the streets. My grandma will be forced to use language in our conversations instead of sending me dozens of links. Consequently, if TikTok disappears, I will no longer receive links to TikTok from my grandma. I'm not against TikTok, but I agreed with my best friend to take drastic actions against the server room for TikTok as soon as we finalize our plans. However, I do understand that there is always an alternative. Creativity begins in our minds, and it will find a way out. Story 27. Well, nothing. A bunch of prepubescent teens would be inconvenienced. That's about it. All content creators have a profile across multiple platforms, so there is no real loss because it will be the same across the board. I, personally, would carry on with my day. I couldn't care less about it as I have never used it, so nothing would happen as far as I am concerned. Story 28. The human consumption machine would divert its eyes to another vehicle upon which it can devour our attention for personal economic gain at the expense of our collective mental health. Story 29. Many creators would be significantly impacted, as TikTok is a major platform for reaching large audiences. Some might shift to platforms like Instagram, YouTube, or Twitch, but their follower base and income could take a hit initially. For others, TikTok's loss could mean a complete disruption of their livelihood if they do not have a strong presence elsewhere. Story 30. Inconvenience. Boredom for a short time, then another application will fill the void, and everyone will move on. Story 31. There would be a lot of people who pull up their phone multiple times per day to look at TikTok and then realize it wasn't there. Story 32. Everybody would make goodbye videos revealing their secrets the day before it disappeared, and then make the move to Instagram or YouTube or that Chinese platform. Story 33. A group of young individuals would react strongly, while most others would not care or even notice. Story 34. Marketing will not be easy, especially for the entertainment industry, particularly for songs and films. Story 35. As a high school teacher, I would actually be able to get through a lesson without catching students trying to secretly film dance trends under their desks. The number of times I have had to say that this isn't a recording studio is ridiculous. Story 36. When it was offline for half a day, a few people I know started saying, "I can't believe how many times I've checked my phone. This is so unhealthy. I have to change." And things like, "I'm going to get back into my old hobbies. I liked who I was then so much more." Then, a few hours later, TikTok came back online in silence because they were all back to scrolling videos again happily. Story 37. I don't understand why some college students haven't copied the platform and named it Knick-Knack or whatever. Story 38. The same thing that happened when Tumblr banned adult content overnight. Grieving and moving on. Finding a lesser replacement that sort of scratches the same itch. Story 39. I would just go to another content platform just like MySpace and Vine before it. I want to see the Generation Z meltdown. Story 40. I think that losing short-form videos from I am the main character content creators is a life feature, not a bug. Story 41. People would go to other platforms, and perhaps another platform would emerge to replace TikTok. Then life would go on as normal. Story 42. Millions of users would lose their primary source of entertainment and connection, while creators would lose a major platform for income and audience engagement. Story 43. Nothing? I mean, it's just an application, so it's not a big deal. One day we woke up and saw that mp3.com was gone. Now that was a huge blow. We have Bandcamp now, which is almost as good. Story 44. Millions would be frantically uploading videos to any site they could find in desperation. Hospital rooms fill up with people injuring themselves by doing the most extreme spasmodic dances they could think of in a desperate attempt to bring it back. Story 45. It would be replaced by something just as bad. I have said it before and I will say it again. As disturbing as Donald Trump's effective ownership of TikTok is, I am not going to weep for what the application was. TikTok is a negative influence on society. It has ruined the attention span of so many people. Story 46. During that short period when it was unavailable in the United States, I saw a video of a preteen super gluing his lips together. Story 47. I would have to call a hotline. My social media addiction is very real. I would need support services. Story 48. Nothing. Few people would have to normalize their expenses and find a new source of income. Others would be better off for it. The future generation may even have some hope left. The end. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.